All right, so welcome to another deep dive. You know, we always like to get into these interesting situations, and today we're really looking at something that I think a lot of people either have dealt with or can definitely see themselves dealing with, and that's when you have, a new professional relationship starting off, and it's got all this energy, all this momentum,
right?
But one of the kind of key formal pieces, the agreement, getting that signed, kind of hits a snag.
It's a really interesting intersection, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got that forward movement and the energy, but then you've got the kind of mechanics, structure underneath,
the structure
that maybe hasn't fully caught up.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to dive into today. And the lens for this is a case study,
right? And
it's helpfully titled "Case Study Standard 2.pdf."
Okay.
And it tells the story of Mike, who's a coach.
Okay.
And Mike's celebrating his 1-year anniversary as a coach.
Oh wow. Okay.
So things are going well for him.
He's made it through the first year.
Yeah. He's over that hump. And at a get together, a celebratory get together, he hears about Zach, who is a recent university graduate who is kind of feeling a little lost.
Yeah. I mean, this really highlights how so many professional connections start right.
Yeah.
That informal networking, somebody knows somebody who could benefit from what you do.
Exactly. And so Mike connects with Zach's father, Ben, who's going to be covering the coaching fees.
Okay.
They have a call, and then Mike meets with Zach.
Got it.
And they really connect. They find some common ground.
Right.
And are both really keen to start their sessions.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So things are looking good, but now the coaching agreement needs to be signed.
Of course.
And Ben's signature is needed on it because he's the one paying.
Right.
Mike sends it over.
Yeah.
And they get started with the coaching.
I can really see how that enthusiasm builds in that early phase. Yeah. Right? You've got that strong connection, a motivated potential client.
Yeah.
And then immediate action.
Yeah, they're off and running.
It can be so energizing.
It is. It's very exciting. And weeks pass, and Zach actually lands a job. Oh. He gets a job as a research coordinator.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is a fantastic outcome.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, so things are moving forward, but here's where it gets a little tricky.
Oh.
That signed coaching agreement from Ben has still not materialized.
Oh, no.
Ben paid up front.
Okay.
Which is great. That's a good sign.
Yeah, that is a good sign.
But the signed paperwork isn't back, and Mike is finding it a little bit hard to get a hold of Ben.
So that initial smooth sailing has hit a little bit of a snag.
Yeah.
A little bit of a headwind.
Yeah, a little bit of a headwind.
And now Mike's in a slightly delicate position. Right?
Oh, yes.
Because obviously he wants to support Zach's progress.
Right.
Which is clearly happening. But he's also facing this reality of an incomplete formal agreement.
Right. And that's really the point of today's deep dive. What do you do when you have this positive initial drive colliding with the need for formal underpinnings?
Yes.
How does Mike navigate this without, disrupting Zach's momentum and without, finding himself in a professionally uncomfortable situation?
Right. And what's so fascinating is that the source material really emphasizes this foundational nature of the coaching agreement.
Okay.
Specifically referencing the ICF Code of Ethics.
Yeah.
The 2020 version.
Okay.
And Section 1, Standard 1, really underscores how important it is to explain and have that agreement on file from the very beginning.
Yeah.
Like right off the bat,
Yeah.
So it's not just about sending a document.
Right.
It's about establishing these rules of engagement up front.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's crucial because it's not just about compliance, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about creating a safe and transparent space where expectations are clear from both sides.
Right.
And so when those initial conversations happen about the agreement, it signals professionalism and builds trust.
Right.
And it can really prevent a lot of misunderstandings later down the line.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. It's not just about the document. It's about having that discussion. What does this involve? What are both of our responsibilities? What are the outcomes we can expect?
What are we looking at here?
Yeah. And laying that groundwork early on can really, I think, prevent a lot of headaches.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Standard 2 of that same section actually takes it a step further.
Okay.
It recommends that the agreement be signed before services begin.
Oh, okay.
So ideally, in an ideal world, Mike would have had Ben's signature before that first session with Zach even happened.
Yeah, hindsight is 20/20, right?
Yeah, it's easy to look back and see what we could have done differently.
But I think it really highlights that sometimes in our eagerness to get started, to see progress,
Yeah.
those crucial administrative steps can sometimes feel less urgent.
They feel like a bit of a roadblock.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
But this case really shows how vital they are.
For sure.
And something else the case study points out is how crucial the agreement is in outlining and maintaining confidentiality.
That's right. And that's actually referenced in Standard 3 of the ICF Code of Ethics.
Okay.
Confidentiality is so fundamental.
Yeah.
I mean, for you to feel truly open in a coaching relationship, or really any professional helping relationship for that matter,
Right.
you need to know that your information is protected.
Yeah.
And that agreement formalizes that understanding.
Right.
It creates a sense of security
Yeah.
that allows for deeper work and trust to develop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So here's Mike. He's seeing real positive change with Zach, but he doesn't have that signed agreement from Ben. The person who's both paying and presumably, has a real vested interest in the coaching.
Yeah, he's invested in the process.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where does he go from here?
Right.
And the source material offers a couple of potential paths forward.
Okay.
One suggestion is that Mike seek outside support.
Yeah, which I think is often a wise move.
Yeah.
When navigating any kind of ethically nuanced situation.
Yeah.
Turning to experienced mentors, supervisors, or even professional coaching organizations can offer a fresh perspective.
Right.
And guidance rooted in those established ethical principles and best practices.
Right.
It's about recognizing that you don't have to navigate these complexities alone.
Uh-huh.
That makes sense from an ethical standpoint.
Yeah.
Practically speaking,
Yeah.
For you listening, where would you even start to find that kind of support in your own field?
Yeah.
Are there professional associations or trusted colleagues that you could turn to for advice when faced with a similar dilemma?
Right. It's about knowing where your resources are.
That's it.
Yeah. The case study also suggests that Mike consider addressing his concerns directly with Zach.
Right.
Which I think speaks to the importance of maintaining open and honest communication.
Yes.
Within the coaching relationship itself.
Uh-huh.
By bringing the issue to Zach's attention, Mike is allowing for a collaborative discussion about how to proceed.
Right.
Zach might have insights,
Exactly.
into why his father hasn't signed the agreement, or might even be willing to help facilitate getting it signed.
He might be able to step in and say, hey, Dad,
Yeah.
you know what's going on with this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which, highlights that sometimes the person directly benefiting from the service can be an ally in resolving these administrative hurdles.
Absolutely.
So the case study then raises a few really important questions for us to consider.
Okay.
And for you as you're listening to consider.
I'm ready.
The first one is, what proactive boundaries?
Can someone in a service-based profession,
Right.
and that could be coaching, it could be something else entirely, put in place from the very beginning to minimize the chances of ending up in this situation?
That's the crux of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
How do you build in those preventative measures?
Yeah.
So thinking about your own professional interactions, what are the equivalent agreements that you rely on in your own work?
Uh-huh.
Are there ways to streamline that process to make it a more integral part of those initial conversations? Perhaps by having clear templates ready?
Right.
Or building in systematic reminders
Yeah.
to ensure those formalities are addressed before the real work begins.
Exactly. It's about thinking ahead and having a system in place that supports both, the relationship and the necessary paperwork.
It's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
Right.
The next question that the case study poses is, if you were advising Mike in this specific situation,
what specific guidance would you offer to help him navigate this both ethically and practically?
Yeah.
So how do you strike that balance, between wanting to support Zach's progress and the professional obligation to have this signed agreement?
Yeah, it's a delicate tightrope walk, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You want to respect Zach's momentum and his positive outcomes.
Yeah.
But you also have a responsibility to operate within those ethical boundaries and protect yourself professionally.
Yeah.
So perhaps suggesting a temporary pause
Okay.
on formal, billable sessions.
Right.
Until that agreement is secured, while still offering maybe brief check-ins or some support
Okay.
to maintain that connection.
Right.
And not completely derail his progress.
Yeah.
What do you think? What are the potential downsides to that approach? Could it impact Zach's motivation?
Right.
Or might it send the wrong message about the value of the coaching?
That's a really good point. It's something to consider. Yeah.
What's the impact on the client's experience?
Exactly.
Yeah. And finally, the case study asks, how would you navigate this situation to maintain that forward momentum while also addressing the lack of a formal agreement?
That's where I think individual styles and comfort levels really come into play.
Yeah.
You know, some coaches might feel more comfortable continuing with a verbal agreement for a short period, especially given the upfront payment.
Right.
And others might feel like it's essential to halt services immediately until that paperwork is finalized.
Right.
It's about understanding your own risk tolerance, your ethical compass, and what feels professionally sound to you.
Right. And it's really, I think, underscores the point that even when those initial stages of a professional relationship are filled with, excitement and positive momentum, paying close attention to those foundational details, the agreements, articulating expectations clearly,
that's all critical.
It is.
For a sustainable and ethically sound working relationship.
This situation with Mike and Zach really underscores that sometimes those most enthusiastic beginnings require the most careful attention to those details.
Yeah.
It's about building on solid ground.
Yes.
So that the progress that you're making is both meaningful and ethically sound in the long run.
And that leads us to our final thought for today. In any collaborative endeavor, how do we balance that natural desire for swift progress with that fundamental need for clear, formal agreements? And what are the potential blind spots that we need to watch out for?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's something I think worth reflecting on in your own professional life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.